Having a physical disability and poor mental health is a battle many are fighting and winning. This is #IGotThis. On this episode of #IGotThis, adjusting your attitude. At different times in their lives, a fencing coach and his young student both realize that being different doesn't mean being less. Pulling his wheelchair along behind him, Ryan Roussel steps inside the front doors of a tidy little blue and white church in small-town Saskatchewan. He isn't here to attend a service. He's here to do battle. Ryan is a parafencer, and the local Catholic church is where he trains in this recreational sport of swordplay.
Fencing, in a lot of ways, has pretty much shaped my life as it is now.
Yes.
My name is Ryan Roussel. I'm 23 years old, and I have cerebral palsy.
The church pews are rolled off to the side, revealing white tape that marks the fencing field of play. And hanging overhead, next to the religious tapestries and statues, are flags from over a dozen countries where the fencers have competed. This church fencing club is a second home to Ryan. He tried this sport when he was about 6 years old and fell in love. He started out in traditional standing fencing because he's always been able to walk short distances, and he likes pushing the limits of his cerebral palsy. But one can only push so far. Growing up, feeling different was tough.
Every kid wants to be included in everything, right? And they want to be equal to everyone else. And if you're in a different area, you're not exactly the same. Adults would separate me from other children because I didn't think I could keep up with other kids due to my disability. So it was like volleyball, basketball, badminton, soccer, hockey, everything I can get my hands on to like make myself feel equal to everybody else and prove that yes, I can do this, you know?
Even as his CP progressed, with his legs weakening and metal plates inserted on his knees, Ryan held on to the attitude that if he couldn't participate the same way as everyone else, he was less of a person.
When I was younger, there was an older person who hinted at the fact that I should maybe try like a parafencing or something like that. And for me, when I was younger, I almost kind of took it like an insult. Like, it's not that I couldn't do it, and nowadays I kind of feel bad for thinking that way, but for me, it seemed like more of a slap in the face than anything, so I kind of got really upset and bothered by it.
Traditional fencing is fast footwork forward and backward as you try to hit your opponent with your blade without them hitting you in return. Fencers wear a mesh mask, gloves, and white electrically conductive jacket that triggers the scoring machine. A loud beep indicates a point or a touch. Parafencing is the same strategy, except you're both seated in wheelchairs that are fixed to the ground about an arm's distance apart, so you can rely on your core upper body strength instead of your legs. Eventually, Ryan's coaches decided to show him some tough love and pushed parafencing in his face.
They just said, you know what, we're just gonna bring someone out to scout him anyway, regardless of what he wants, and he's gonna do it and see if he likes it. So I was pushed into it, but when they pushed me off the deep end, I kind of just fell into it. I'm like, I can actually do this, and I like it, you know? So on one hand, they kind of pushed me into it, but I'm glad they did.
Direct. Lean back.
If anything, it's more challenging than I ever thought it would be. I kind of awoke to like a new avenue for me to actually pursue, because I realized that there was somewhere I could go where I could still achieve that high performance level of fencing, and the competitive part I was searching for at an international level with the abilities I currently had. And it's something that I could strive towards and focus on and be proud of doing.
Within the first 2 years of wheelchair fencing, Ryan was on the podium, winning medals at national and international competitions, like the World Cup. Still playing the sport he loved in a different way and succeeding was what Ryan needed to change his outlook on life.
I feel like it was really just me being a teenager who didn't want to be seen as different. And that's a very shallow thing, but, and I can admit that, it's a very shallow thing, but that's, I think, what it boils down to. I feel kind of stupid for getting that, like being that way now, but as a younger kid, it was kind of like saying I'm not on the same level as everybody else, right? But now that I'm in that world now, I see that it's not that you're less than anybody, it's just a different kind of struggle, right?
Clinical social worker Laura Hicks helps many of her clients with their mental health. She says we live in a culture where it's common to compare and measure ourselves to others. But that's an unfair assessment, as everyone has different gifts and flaws.
If you look at Instagram or Facebook or any social media out there, if you look at any kind of like pop psychology that there is, there's definitely this pressure to change the things that you don't like about yourself. And this might work for some people, but for people with disabilities, it's really not a healthy or helpful attitude to have, because they can't change it, and changing it isn't necessarily the right thing to do. And so looking at acceptance and accepting yourself and for what your abilities are is a much healthier approach.
It took some time for Ryan to find his path, and even after he did, those bothersome thoughts haven't entirely disappeared.
Even though I've kind of outgrown it, that feeling of not being on the same level as everybody else or equal to everybody else is still there. It's in the back of your head, right? And like there's some days where I'll just wake up and just not feel good. It's just like everything kind of just goes wrong, and one of those really bad days where everything just feels off and doesn't go the way you want it to. But everybody has those days. It's like some days will be bad and you won't have a good day. The next day may be better, or probably will be better. So you just got to keep looking forward and hoping for the best, right?
Ryan says the world of fencing has taught him better ways to balance his life and to feel physically and emotionally stronger.
So it taught me how to deal with lots of mental issues, like if you're having like a stressful day or like just a day where like you just don't feel good, you know, like you just feel off all day. It kind of gives you the tools you need to fix that or deal with that. So it's just something that's taught me a lot of life skills that I don't think I would have really learned otherwise. And so it's like a learning respect for people in your sport and other people and your opponents as well. Proper etiquette, different languages, meeting new people, learning how to make friends, you know, proper technique, discipline, physical care, nutrition, mental health. There's a myriad of things I've learned from going through fencing as a whole, and honestly, without it, I don't know what I would do with myself, because it's been such a humongous part of my life, and all the people in my life are connected to it in some way most of the time, that without it, I wouldn't have met any of these people.
And one of the most important people in Ryan's life is his coach, who has unexpectedly become his teammate. Stay tuned. We'll be back with hashtag I Got This. Welcome back. This is hashtag I Got This. A sizzling steak or a fresh pie, creating in the kitchen helps Ryan Rousel decompress when he's feeling overwhelmed.
Something about just putting a part of yourself into food, like if that makes any sense at all. You kind of like have to work with your hands and, you know, okay, how much of this do I add? How much of this do I add? Is the smell okay? Does it taste okay? And you kind of just, as the smell fills the room, you kind of feel like a sense of accomplishment, or at least I do.
He gets the same satisfaction exercising.
My most down or stressed, for me, working out at like the gym or at home is the best reducer for me when it comes to mental stress, because you put all that stress and depression or whatever I'm feeling into that workout, and it kind of just lets it all out.
Ryan tries to stay active without relying too heavily on his legs. He can walk and run short distances and spends as much time on his feet as in his chair, but his legs are still weak from his cerebral palsy. Keeping his mind and body busy pulls his focus away from little and big worries, like his CP progressing or getting scoliosis.
My brain just gets overwhelmed and my mind kind of fights against me sometimes, and that's just normal with everyone. I mean, everybody has their own situations, right? With mine, it's very disability focused sometimes, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it has nothing to do with that at all. That's why I try to keep myself as busy as possible, because the less time I'm spent thinking on that kind of stuff, the more I can focus on things I actually enjoy, right?
Like fencing, still his greatest passion.
You want me to hit it to the shoulder or the chest? It's something that becomes a part of you. And without it, I really don't know where I'd be.
One of the people who has been by his side since his first day is Douglas Brecht, Ryan's coach. Doug formed the fencing club back in 1990, and a few years ago, he and his wife bought and renovated the church into this larger training space. He's also the coach who not so gently convinced Ryan to try parafencing. Well, now Doug is in the same situation himself.
My name is Douglas Brecht. I'm 65 years old. The cervical vertebrae in my neck are fused, and the joints in my big toes are fused.
Decades-old injuries finally forced this lifelong fencer to realize he can no longer do it standing up. In the 1970s, while in the armed forces, Doug froze his toes solid. Now, he has no cartilage left in those joints, so his toes had to be pinned and fused. They no longer bend, so he can no longer balance as he used to. But that's not his only workplace injury.
It was May 4th, 1992. Something like that sticks in your memory.
Doug went on to become a police officer.
And I was involved in a car chase, and I pulled up beside the subject's vehicle to identify the driver of the vehicle I was pursuing, and he tried to run me off the road and ram the side of my vehicle. I think he watched too much television. Anyways, because my head was turned to the left when that happened, there was a whiplash effect, but it was a twisting whiplash, and I herniated 2 discs in my neck.
Surgeons inserted 2 pieces of beef bone between several vertebrae and fused it into one.
And people always ask me, well, how do you feel afterwards? I says, well, other than a craving for barbecue sauce, not bad.
Doug may joke, but his life has not been easy. He can still walk, but the damage to his spine became the catalyst to a host of complications throughout his body that has reduced mobility and caused weakness.
When you combine that with the fact that my toes don't give me any balance anymore, I walk with a cane, because if I don't, I probably will fall over, especially if I have to stop or stand still or turn a corner. It's just the balance control. The brain says balance, the body says what? And it just doesn't happen. And that's how I wound up as a wheelchair fencer.
The wheelchair solved the balance issue. Then his hand became too weak to grip the weapon, so he now wears a special glove that straps it into his hand. He accepted parafencing much easier than Ryan, but Doug has become a bit wiser in his years. Looking back, his attitude wasn't as understanding in his younger days. Like Ryan, Doug did not want to be considered less capable, even when his mobility started declining and he was put on a desk job at the police station.
Fencers are very independent people, and the fact that you have to ask for help, that's hard to swallow. First of all, you go into denial, saying, I can still do what I used to do, even though everything indicates you can't do what you used to do. And then you go into a bit of a depression or funk over the fact that you can't do what you could, and you were good at what you did. And now, not only are you not good, but you can't do it. It's very easy to find yourself slipping down that slope where I don't want to do anything anymore. If I can't do what I could always do, why should I do anything at all? It's very easy to get into that depressed state where you look at the future and you realize that everything is not going to get better. This is it. This is as good as it's going to get. It's only going to get worse. And then you can quite easily get depressed. That's happened on occasion, and I've got to literally kick myself in the butt and say, come on, this is not the end of the world. You've got to get on with it. There's lots of things you can still do. There's lots of things you can't do as well as you could do before. Just accept that fact, and that is not easy to do.
As both Ryan and Doug navigated the new world of parafencing, they soon found out the tremendous level of athleticism.
You begin to realize when your opponent gets out of his chair on his hands and handstand walks across the gym that these guys are athletes and they're hardcore. And so realize then that this is not a second-rate sport. We really realized that when we started getting able-bodied fencers to sit in a chair to train against Ryan and myself. And some of them quit and say they'll never do it again because it's too uncomfortable, too difficult, and it hurts for them.
Wheelchair fencing became a whole new challenge.
My eyes brighten up at the word challenge, but I love the idea of something that I haven't mastered yet, and now I've got to work at trying to do it. I love to learn new things, and this was really the case with that. And my wife Genevieve has been a great deal of support. She's very good at literally mentally kicking me in the butt to get me out of a funk when I'm in one, so that helps.
Hold it more against your, yeah.
Doug's partner in crime, Genevieve, also fences. She tries to give Doug the right amount of support to stay mentally strong.
My idea is like fishing for a 50-pound fish, but you got a 20-pound line. If you pull on it, it's gonna break. If you don't do anything, he's gonna go. So you gotta know when to pull, when to push, when to hold, when to let go, and that's the adjustment. But that's life in general, not just with someone like that. But that's where I come in. We all have things that we can do, that we cannot do, that we like, that we don't like.
And then be ready for the disengage.
Doug is figuring that out. And fortunately, he's the type of guy who enjoys a challenge and he gets bored easily. So he's trying new activities or finding new ways to continue doing some of the things he loves, like lifting weights. As he started losing the fine motor skills in his already weakening hands, he designed special hooks that Velcro around his wrists to help him grip the weights so he can lift. And guess where he works out? The basement of the church, where he built a full fitness center. When Doug is not at church or the police station, he's at home, shooting paint. Stay tuned. We'll be back with hashtag I Got This. Welcome back. This is hashtag I Got This. Hidden behind a weathered fence on Douglas Brecht's acreage sits old cars, tires, and big black structures, perfect for hiding, sneaking, and playing paintball. Doug has been operating a paintball field since 1988. Many of his fencers join in the fun. Even Ryan, who was quite the sniper. Doug says everyone has a multitude of abilities they may not realize because they've never tried.
The disability causes you to get down on yourself because of what you can't do that you could do. But people don't realize how many different things they can do. And there's lots of other opportunities out there that you can excel at in spite of the disability. Nobody does anything well the first time you try it. But the second time you try it, you will.
And Doug will try anything. He's active about 19 hours of every day. He might be renovating the inside of an old school bus with Genevieve, or making a new cosplay costume of comic book character Green Arrow.
How's it look?
You look good.
Making things I find very good for my mental health. It's a case of being creative, and I find that stimulating and at the same time relaxing, because it keeps my mind active, and it's something that my disability doesn't prevent me from doing.
He loves creating with his hands. Losing that function has been his hardest limitation to deal with. But he does what he can, or he asks for help.
No, I want to finish the hood. I need you to glue this here for me.
Okay.
I need some help with that, and then you can help me try it on, because I think we'll be ready for the next cosplay.
Yeah, Green Arrow, your favorite, eh?
Yeah.
Clinical social worker Laura Hicks says toxic masculinity is still too common. It's a cultural pressure that males have to behave a certain way. She says this damaging stereotype needs to be redefined.
In today's society, people definitely, especially men, have the idea that you have to be strong, and what strong means is that you can't ask for help. And it's absolutely okay to ask for help and say you weren't able to do something. And especially if you have a physical disability and you're not able to do something that you were previously able to do, it doesn't mean that you're weak or that you're less than. It just means that you're adaptable.
Doug is nothing if not adaptable. He's writing a book. He's also an actor, an inventor, police officer, fencer, coach, builder, and he owns a paintball field. He says it is up to each person to decide how they want to live within their own life.
There are times, it passes through your mind that, it would be just so much simpler if I didn't have to put up with any of this. But it will never get better if that happens. If you don't try to do something, it will never get better. It will only get worse.
Ryan's life improved after he gave parafencing a shot, and his hard work led to a dream come true. Tokyo. Ryan is the first fencer from Saskatchewan to compete in a Paralympic Games and one of only 4 on the Canadian team. He didn't make the podium, but it was an eye-opening experience, and he's already training for the next Paralympics in Paris. As for Doug, he'll keep coaching Ryan and competing himself, as well as trying anything new that crosses his path, however he is able to do so.
I'm not any less than I was before, and it's really not a case that you're less. Now, as I'm older and more experienced with it, it's not a case that you're less, you're just different.
And sometimes being different ends up the best way to be.
Regardless of the difficulties and the challenges, hashtag I got this.
Hashtag I got this.
And cut.
Narrator Martin Yap. Video production Honeycut Studios. Integrated Described Video Specialist M. Williams. Content Development Specialist Jim KRYSKO. Coordinating Producer Jennifer Johnson. Director of Production Kara Nye. Director of Programming Brian Perdue. VP Content Development and Programming John Melville. President and CEO David Errington. Copyright 2022 AMI Accessible Media Inc.